Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County. Welcome to Bradford and Brooks. And just a moment, I've got Margie Bradford's joining us today by telephone. This is one of our first times that she's been out of the studio and I've been in the studio. Let me see if I can hit all the right buttons here. All right, let's see, telephone. All right, good morning, Margie. Are you with us?
I am with you, and this is a unique position for me, but I mean, hey, there's the first time for everything, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah, this is a unique position, Margie, because if we're talking about something I don't want to talk about, I can just click you off.
Well, don't get used to it, kiddo.
No, I won't. Didn't have any trouble getting in town because of the snow. I may have trouble getting up my hill at the end of the show, but that's pretty much a constant thing at my house. The hill never goes away.
I totally understand that. Being my driveway is my nemesis. It's just zipping by out in front of me, but getting into and out of this driveway is, as you and I both know, is a nail-biting thing at times.
It certainly can. It certainly can.
That brick wall just gets right out there in front of you real quick.
Yeah, it seems get closer every time, depending on how much snow you have.
Yes, it does. And I appreciate the opportunity to do it this way. I think this is it's a new experience and kind of fun. I didn't have to get out of my pajamas.
Well, I thought I better go ahead.
I'm not starting a trend that way, but you understand. But
I thought you only left your pajamas on when you went to Walmart.
That too. That too. Well, right. I'm sorry that I'm going to miss the in-studio experience with Gary because, I was excited to have him here and to be our guest and really wanted to be there. I have so enjoyed the concerts that he's been involved in and the different programs. The last one literally had me up dancing in the aisles. Anyway, Gary, I just want to say welcome, and I will turn you over to the tender mercy of Jim.
Yeah. Well, let me do the formal introduction, Margie. Our very special studio guest today, and I appreciate him braving the elements to join me in here. Of course, it's nice and warm, and we get to watch the snow outside. Mm-hmm. Gary Vidito, and Gary's probably best known locally, or at least to a lot of us, as a longtime participant in the Stephen Foster story and the musical, and he is probably one of the most visible characters from the drama because he is the banjo player, and is if. Of course, I worked for the newspaper and other publications, and he's often been used through the years as in the illustrations for the advertising for the drama. So welcome to the show again, Gary.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Margie.
Well, tell our listeners, again, as we talked about before the show, a lot of people may think you're just the banjo player with the drama, and that's but as you said, you're not going to make a living working 2 months a year as, playing in the local theater. Tell us a little bit about your career and what you mentioned you're not from Kentucky, but you've been here quite a while. What your interest in music and what maybe and people think maybe you just only play Stephen Foster songs, and that's not the case.
No, that's not the case at all. We were talking before the show today about if I could find a place where I could make a living 2 months out of the year, doing Stephen Foster, I wouldn't be here with you right now. I'd be sitting on a beach, somewhere. But no, I can't make a living doing that. But it's been a great experience for me to be in the Stephen Foster story, and it opened a lot of doors for me. But I moved to Kentucky in 1978 and I moved to Kentucky to go to school at Campbellsville College, now University, of course, and I was going into church music, and so came to Kentucky, started that first year in the School of Music there in Campbellsville, and the department head at that time said, in the spring, said, well, the Stephen Foster Story is coming to Campbellsville to audition, and I'd like you to audition for that, because if you got in, that would be a great experience for you.
Sure.
So I decided to do that. I didn't know what the Stephen Foster Story was, but I did audition, and I did get in to the Stephen Foster Story as a singer. And 2 weeks before the rehearsals started, I got a call from the musical director, and he said, well, I understand you play guitar. And I said, yes, I play guitar. He said, do you play banjo? No, I don't play banjo. And he said, well, we just found out our banjo player is not coming back, and we're in a panic. Do you want to learn? So shortly thereafter, I met someone halfway between here in Bardstown and Campbellsville, where I was living. They gave me an old beat-up banjo and a Mel Bay banjo book and the score for the Stephen Foster Story. And in 2 weeks, I was playing banjo for the Stephen Foster Story, and the rest, as they say, is history. But that's how I first got involved. But, of course, music was a part of my life long before that.
And it still is very much a part of your life.
It is. It is very, that's all I do. I'm very fortunate to say that everything that I do to make a living is in music.
That's a dream for a lot of people.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is.
That's great.
And as they say, if you can find something you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? So that's been a good fortune for me.
All right. Gary, I know 45 years at the drama. Has there been a lot of change in I guess the performances of the music, through the years? And I know the music doesn't change, but sometimes the song selection may change through the years.
A little bit. The story, you can't change the story because it's history.
Right.
Although, of course, there's always a little artistic license in every entertainment venue that you see, but it is changed a little bit each year. Part of that change has been to keep up with the time and the presentation of how the world will view certain aspects now.
Sure.
Of course, we're very much more conscious of equality and racism and those sorts of things now.
Right.
And Johnny Warren, the director, our artistic managing director there, has done a really good job of keeping up with those things and trying to direct that to be palatable for today's audience. But the story itself has stayed pretty much the same all the years, just the presentation of it.
And that's it's been very important for those updates and to keep the show fresh too, and like you said, palatable to the current audience.
It's very much an important part to keep the show fresh. I always encourage people in Bardstown, Nelson County to come to the show once a year. Nelson County residents may not realize that they can get in for free. There are Nelson County nights where they can get into the show.
Right.
And I think it's important for people in this area, which is, Bardstown, of course, and Nelson County is such a tourist area. Not only Bourbon's a big part of our community, of course, but there's so much more here to do. And I think it's important for people to know what's going on in their community. And the Stephen Foster Story is certainly an iconic part of that, and they should know about that. That way, when people from out of state or out of their local area say, well, what's there to do in Bardstown? They can talk about it, and they can say, you ought to go see this. It's a great show.
Right, and I know that in other communities, the outdoor dramas some of them have kind of fallen on hard times.
Right.
And that's a shame, because it's a unique art form. The drama under the stars. I think that's
right. Yeah. There's no question that that has diminished for all types of outdoor entertainment, frankly, because when the Stephen Foster Story started in 1958, not many people had indoor air conditioning.
Right.
And not many people could go to, there weren't as many indoor venues that had comforts that we now have today. So that's been a little bit of a part of it, I think. But it's still a very unique iconic experience. And yes, a lot of the other outdoor dramas have gone by the wayside. We went through a very difficult time back in 2017 when the state shut down the Stephen Foster story. And it was an interesting situation because we are, of course, under the umbrella of the state. And I don't know what was going on there state-wise. I can't speculate on that. But whatever the situation was, that happened across outdoor dramas in Kentucky. Jenny Wiley and others, around Kentucky, and some of them didn't survive. But to the credit of Nelson County and City of Bardstown, of course, they were not going to stand for that. And so now this is still on state property, but it's leased to Nelson County and Bardstown. And because of the tenacity of the folks here in Bardstown and Nelson County, we've been able to maintain it and improve it. So it's a great testament. Right, and it's a testament to the local community got involved and made sure that we were able to keep the drama going. And kudos to our local leaders, too, because the work they did behind the scenes to raise money, to work with legislators and state government, it very easily could not have happened. Right. And that would have been just a tremendous loss to our community. Right. Right, and as you said, the community leaders at that time, some of those have changed even now, but those at that time really rallied at the state and at the state level and beyond. We, as the Stephen Foster story, have gone many times to open Senate sessions in Frankfort to sing "My Old Kentucky Home," which is our state song, and they've always been very appreciative of that, and we are appreciative of them because they have rallied to hold on to what we have here. Margie, you still with us?
I'm still with you.
Well, I didn't know if you had a question or a comment you wanted to make. I don't mean to shut you out.
No. I do when you all can get around to it. I do want to hear more discussion about this organization, the Mid Kentucky Arts. Programs. I was a couple of years ago introduced to your all's production by a friend who a faithful friend who goes to every one of those, Mr. John Snyder, and I didn't really realize what you did. I hadn't been to previous programs, but I've since become an enthusiastic convert because I did not really realize how much talent and how beautifully these concerts are done and the amazing talent that you have in them from all over the middle of Kentucky, evidently. And like some of these productions, I know you've had 50 people or more performing, and I know that you're an integral part of that, if not one of the moving shakers on it. So, really, tell us more about that organization, how you got in it. Right. I'd be glad to, Margie. As I said, the Stephen Foster story was really an integral part of my staying in Kentucky. But through that also, through the music program at Campbellsville, I met Teresa Tedder, who is the director of the Mid-Kentucky Chorus now, and she's been doing that for some years. And so she and I were college classmates at the time. And over the years, we have maintained our friendship and become very close. And back in the mid 2000s, I guess it was, I was also encouraged by another friend of mine, Colette Delaney, Colette was Jeannie in the Stephen Foster story. Keep going back to the Stephen Foster story. We're going to get away from that, but she said, "You should come join us in Mid Kentucky Chorus." And I was directing music in churches at the time, and fairly busy, and so finally I decided I would like to do that because I knew that what I do in church music,
I love doing what I do in church music, and I'm still doing it. I direct the music for the Bardstown United Methodist Church here in town now, the choir there. And I love to do that, but I really long to do a little, at that time especially, deeper music, more challenging music. So I came to Mid-Kentucky Chorus back in around 2005, I think it was, and found that was really very fulfilling to me, and found that they had a large group of folks that did that challenging music. And as I said, Teresa Tedder is the director of that. She's the choral director. And then Susan Spalding, the Spaldings are from Springfield, have kind of been the spearheads of much of the success of the Mid-Kentucky Arts program. So I got involved in that, and Susan, the producer of that, asked me at one point, could you be a part of another program that we want to do? We want to do a program about Broadway music. And I said, I'd love to do that. So Colette and another friend of ours, we did a 3-person show about that sort of thing, and I enjoyed doing that. And then I got more involved in Mid-Kentucky Chorus in other programs, and I began to write programs for Mid-Kentucky Chorus. Probably the first one I think that I wrote was the music of John Denver and Emmylou Harris. And I did that program. We did that at the Spalding Center of St. Catherine College, which when it was there. Right. And we did two weekends of that, and we actually ended up having to turn people away because it was we were sold out. And Renee Buckman, who lives here in town, was the Emmylou Harris voice of that. And then I had a band of friends of mine put together, and we did that. And we did that show then. That started with Mid-Kentucky Chorus, but then we did that show in several other places as well. And then over the years, I've written other shows. I wrote a show called At the Hop, and that was all about the 1950s music. And it was similar, I suppose, in a way to this most recent show that I did, Dancing in the Street, which...
Oh, the 1960s.
Right. Yeah. This is the show that there's a flyer of that show, if you can see that on the camera there. But I have a flyer here of Dancing in the Street, and it's music in the 1960s. But I did the show of the 1950s. Then we did a show called Studio 150, which is Highway 150, and it was like a nightclub, and all those types of songs, the torch songs and all those sorts of things. And we also did a show. I also wrote a show called Yeehaw, which was an obvious steal from Hee Haw. And we sold out all those shows too. So those are the extra shows, programs that all come out of Mid-Kentucky Chorus or Mid-Kentucky Arts program. Mid-Kentucky Chorus has approximately, depending on the season, but we have approximately 70 members of a choir, and it's a great choir. We have some professional and some semi-professional, and then some who just love to sing. And Priscilla Dixon is our accompanist there, and she's been with us for a very long time. One of the premier shows that we do, one of the anticipated shows that we do, of course, every year is our Christmas program. Right. And we do that not only at St. Catherine, but we do it right here in Bardstown at St. Joe Proto-Cathedral every year. And that sets the tone for Christmas for many, many people. And then we've got a great season coming up here with the spring concert, which is going to be all Gershwin and Gershwin-like music. So we're working on that right now, and that'll be in April. And Mid-Kentucky Arts and Mid-Kentucky Chorus has provided for me a lot of opportunities to do some of these things I would not have otherwise had the opportunity to do. So I'm thrilled to be a part of that.
Aren't you also a visual artist?
Not a visual artist, no. My daughter is, I'll put a little plug for her in here, because she does murals on the sides of buildings and on various things, and her website is Facing the Wall Murals. Putting a little plug for my daughter Julia in there. But I'm not a visual artist. I'm a musician. I'm challenged to draw a stick figure, Margie, but no, you might be thinking of C.W. Vidito now. That's different Vidito name.
It's a different spelling.
It is a different spelling. I'm the only one in. I'm the only one here that spells it Vidito, and I always say I spell it like they pronounce it, because they pronounce it Vidito, but they spell it Vitito, right?
Yeah, right.
Sorry, my Vitito friends.
Well, they.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the Gershwin. There's no shortage of material in that catalog, and that it seems to me in performing Gershwin that it would be tough to narrow down. I don't know how many tunes you can do in a show, but you've got to cull through such a catalog.
Yeah, that's true, and that's the challenge of our director, Teresa Tedder, and she is doing that even as we speak. Now, we've already started rehearsals, but she fine tunes as we go along with that, and much of that will be choral, but there will also be solos and duets and ensemble pieces and things like that. So it's going to be a great program.
Yeah, back, quite a few years ago, before St. Catherine closed, I was working with their student newspaper, and so that's when I got to meet Teresa Tedder and just understand what kind of talent she is.
She's a fantastic talent. Yeah. She is a composer, a pianist, and of course a choral director. She's also the director of music for St. Dominic Catholic Church down in Springfield, and she's had many commissioned works by major organizations. Recently she did, and this is only recently, but she did a program about Martin Luther King Jr., and that was performed not only here in our local area, but it was performed at the Galt House for the National Pastoral Musicians Conference. That was a couple of years ago that was done. And that is a magnificent work that she did, and then she's done many others too. She did one about Lincoln, which is a great work as well. We did that one also in that Galt House presentation. And then she's been commissioned by a lot of other churches and different organizations to write over the years.
Well, I know that the Mid-Kentucky Chorus, I guess as a journalist, most of the time, my biggest exposure to those programs is usually around the holidays and how popular those have been. And my aunt, Louise Nally at the Bird, she's a big proponent.
I certainly know Louise Nally. Who doesn't, right?
And she always keeps me apprised. Can you make sure this gets put in the Nelson County Gazette?
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's a great proponent of the show, and Facebook, everything else. Anyway, well, Gary, in addition to these programs, you've stayed quite busy on some solo work.
I have. I have several what I would say one-man shows that I do, and one of I guess the earliest one that I did was actually, again, kind of inspired by my early interest in history, and that was a part of the Stephen Foster story. That's what really got me interested in it. But I got interested in that era and learning more about that time period, and certainly about slavery and all of those things, and about the Civil War. So I developed a show called A Nation Once More. And it's all about the Civil War, and of course every show that I do includes music. And it's about that time period and what that time period was about. People think, well, it was all about slavery. It was the slavery was the trigger, but it was about states' rights, and it was about things that we still deal with today. States not wanting to be controlled by federal situations that don't apply to the states. But then one of those biggest things, of course, especially for the South, was slavery.
Right.
So I developed that show called A Nation Once More, and I did that a lot in schools. I traveled around doing that. I mentioned to you earlier that I still do this. I go to Florida a couple of times a year, and I do programs down there. And back during that time, I was doing that in schools down there and telling the kids about the Civil War and doing it in an entertaining way, but doing the facts of why the Civil War happened and why we are still learning from that today, and why we don't want that sort of a situation to happen again. But you can do a lot through entertainment to educate as well.
Sure.
That's a little more difficult to do now because of all the mandates, federal and otherwise, on schools. It's hard to get into schools to do those sorts of things now. I wish I could still do them. But anyway, I've done that one, the Civil War show, and then I also developed a show that was based on my dad's experience in World War II, and that's called World War II, A Survivor's Story. My dad actually wrote the script to this show. I'm holding this up for folks that may be able to see it on the camera there, but this is the CD that I have for that, and it's called Songs My Father Sang, and it's all songs of that time period, and I portray my dad in that show. I've done it here at the Nelson County Library and at the gallery over here, almost right next door, and various places. And then I do that a lot when I go to Florida, because a lot of those folks are, if not from that time period as veterans, they were at least children when that happened. Some of them down there. So I do that show a lot down there, and it again just tells the story of World War II. I've even got a song on there. I do 5'2", and I do it in the voice of Louis Armstrong. And then I've got other one-man shows too. My most recent project. I'm talking a lot here, Jim. Is that okay?
That's what you're here for, Gary.
Margie, I don't want to cut you out. Margie's home having her coffee and her jammies anyway. So. But I got a program that I created back in, started in about 2020 when nobody else could do anything anyway.
Right.
And that program is called I'm Not Done Yet. It's about what I call the art of successful aging. And I realized as I came into these later years, Facebook's a great thing, but I reconnected with a lot of my high school friends on Facebook. And this is not to disparage any of them, but what I was hearing the most about was, well, I got my hip replacement last week, and now I'm recovering from that, and I'm sitting here watching football because I'm retired now, and that's all I'm going to do, and I'm keeping my grandkids all week, and that's what I love, my grandkids. And I'm thinking, I love my grandkids too. And it's great that we can have hip replacements, but that to me is not what real life is about.
Right.
And I came to the realization that as we come into these older years, it's similar to when you get out of college, you find out what your goal is going to be, what your purpose is going to be. You get a job in your field of endeavor, and hopefully you're able to continue that then for many years. And when we get older, I think we have to do the same sort of thing. We have to find out what our new purpose is. We have to do a purpose search and find out what, now that I'm maybe retired, and you don't have to be retired because we start getting our senior discount at 50, right?
Yeah. That's when the group sends you all the membership information to join. Yeah,
all that stuff. So really, people, even in their 40s, begin to think, I've been on my job now for 20 years in my career. What's next for me? Is this all there is? And I really think that people need to take a serious look at themselves and find out what their new purpose is as they get into those older years. So this project, I'm Not Done Yet project, is all about helping people find their new purpose in life. And it also deals with some of the issues that we deal with as senior adults. The first song is I'm not done yet. I'm going to keep going. And then there's one in here called Head in the Clouds, which is kind of a calypso sort of thing, but it's about the fact that I woke up today, and by golly, it's going to be a good day because I woke up today, right? And it's finding the positive in things. There's also addressing some difficult issues. Back about 7 years ago, I lost my granddaughter. That's one of the more difficult things that any of us can go through, is to lose a child or a grandchild.
Right. And
so there's a song about loss in those ways. There's also a song on here about Alzheimer's called I Still Love You. And so I really want to get, this is my prime focus right now, is this I'm Not Done Yet. I want to get that message out there, not just as an entertainment thing, because it is an entertainment thing, but I want people who are in those older years to realize that they still have a purpose. If you've got a brain, you got a purpose. I heard somebody say, if you've got a pulse, you've got a purpose, and I believe that's true. So it's to help people my age, even younger and older, to find that new purpose. So I've got a lot of these projects like this, and a lot of single shows that I do, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do those things.
Well, I appreciate the you sharing your talent and insight. I think a lot of us our age, as retirement nears or arrives, you ask yourself that question. You're doing a little soul searching. What's next? And a lot of times that answer isn't quite as obvious as you might hope it would be.
Right. People our age get to a point where, well, if these younger people do what I do, if they just do it right, then I've got all the answers. And, my answer to that is you may have lived a long life, you may have had a lot of experiences in life, but if you're 70, if you're 75 years old, you've never been 75 years old before. Right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
you're in new territory as well. And there are certain things, too, that we can learn from these younger people who are willing to make some changes and things like that, do things in a different direction. And I think older people need to realize that too. Just because it worked when you were 20 years old doesn't mean it's going to work now.
I think that's a very valuable lesson, because at this point in life we've done a lot of things, but those experiences don't always exactly translate into the modern world.
No.
But they can all have lessons to help. Like my kids who are 28 and 32. That experience is helpful, but we have to understand that they can't do it the way we did it, because all the aspects of life are different.
Right.
It's a different world.
It's a different world. That's right. Yeah.
All right, we need to take a commercial break. We've got some messages to get in. All right, you're listening to Bradford and Brooks, and with Margie in her jammies drinking coffee in her kitchen, not here in the studio. so
it's a thought.
Well, yeah, maybe we can get Roth to put a coffee maker in here. What do you think?
All right.
All right, we'll be back in just a few moments. After these messages, we'll be back with more with Gary Vidito in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford checking in by telephone. You still with us, Margie?
I'm still with it.
All right, let me check with you. Do you have any input or any questions because we're down to about the last 8 minutes of the show?
Well, the problem that a lot of us, as we get older, we get into the habit of seeing ourselves as a certain age. That when you reach that milestone, it's I'm 70 years old. Instead of just thinking of yourself as yourself, and what do you feel like doing, and what do you want to do. And, don't put artificial age limits on yourself, because it's you're putting yourself into a box, and we're all different.
I agree with that, Margie, and I think that one of the things that happens with folks, retirement, for example, is a great thing. I mean, it's a great benefit that we have here in this country and in other countries, and something that people look forward to. But there's also a stigma with retirement that once I've retired, my usefulness is done. And too often people buy into that, and I don't think that should be true. That purpose is the biggest thing, I think. But I think you're absolutely right that we should. And another thing that we should not do as older people is we shouldn't, if we feel like dancing, we shouldn't say, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm too old and people will think badly of me." Well, go ahead and dance. There's something about there's a balance there. You don't want to act like an idiot, but I think that's something that we do too much too. Is we put ourselves, as you said, in a box, and we should be able to live as we want to live and find that purpose and be useful.
Exactly. The other comment I wanted to make is that if you let us know, we'll be happy to give you free time to come and talk again about other programs that you all are presenting.
Okay.
Or just to let us know when the performances are, and we'll give you a free plug.
Well, I appreciate that, Margie. Thank you so much for doing that. I will take advantage of that because promo and marketing, that's the deal. That's the biggest deal. So I appreciate any help we can get with that.
Well, what you all are doing is, I think, a real service to the community.
Well, thank you.
For one thing, you're letting all of these people who have this wonderful talent to be able to display it and use it. And that's why God gives it to you.
Yeah,
to be used.
That's true. And our people, whether in the choir or in these programs that I do, it's a lot of work putting this together. And sometimes over, the course of putting this last show that I did together, Dancing in the Street, I thought, what in the world have I got myself into? Because I had to put the singers all together. I had to teach them all the harmonies. There's no sheet music really for learning that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then I put the band together. The band was all fabulous musicians, all professional musicians.
Right.
But I had to teach them what we were going to do in this show. And these songs, these 60s songs were all, of course, very familiar, but we didn't always do them in the way that they did them in the 60s.
Right.
And so they had to kind of depart from that. And but once you get into doing the show, once we got into doing the show 2 weekends ago, and you see the response of the audience, our audience, you were there, Margie, you saw the response of the audience.
That's wonderful.
And they were all involved, and they were up dancing, and these were not young people. these were older people, but they were all up dancing, and I had them up doing the twist and all kinds of stuff, and they really enjoyed it. So the feeling that the performer gets back from that, man, that makes it all, that's why we do it. That's what makes it all worthwhile. And we love doing what we do.
Well, we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Margie. I appreciate that. And I'll keep in touch with you on these things because we have other things coming up.
Okay, Gary.
Well, Gary, one of the more valuable things when my kids were in elementary school was music education, because that adds so much to a child's, my son was in band at school and played the trombone, which I never thought he would learn, but he did fine. And then my daughter played flute, and later transitioned into dulcimer, and all of those were just such learning experiences and just such wonderful, things, because young people can pick things up so easily.
Absolutely.
And if you have parents who don't mind listening to a screechy piccolo or
clarinet, that's the worst.
Well, my daughter ended up playing both piccolo and flute, and she often told the joke, how do you it was a piccolo joke, and they said, how do you improve the sound of a band with two piccolo players? Well, you shoot one of them. But anyway, that was such a wonderful experience, and that kind of developed her interest in the arts in general, and that's it's not tested, in state, education tests,
right?
But it adds so much to a child's learning.
That's something that we all need to keep aware of, is music education. I have many friends in music education, and they are proponents of that, and we all need to be aware of the value of music.
Well, and sometimes when you have budget crunches and funding issues, and do we fund a music teacher this year or not? That's, I know it comes down to dollars and cents, but to me, that's such a critical need, even though there's no test for it. I think it's such an addition to a child's learning.
It is.
It's critical.
And it enhances every other area of their life.
Exactly. For the rest of their life, too.
Yes.
All right, Gary, well, we're just about out of time. Margie, thank you for calling in and joining us in your jammies and coffee.
Easiest show I ever did.
All right. Well, Gary, thank you so much for coming in on
Thank
this
you,
snowy
Jim.
day.
Thank you, Margie.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for Bradford and Brooks. Hope you keeping warm on this snowy Wednesday morning. We'll see you next week with another guest and another show. Take care.